Hi, it's Matt from New West. I want to give you 3 tips for attending showings as a buyer. This applies to condos and houses. It could be open houses or private showings. The main theme here is sometimes you don't want to say too much. You might give away your position. That could be beneficial in a negotiation. But you also don't want to say too little. That could actually negatively impact you. So these 3 tips are simple. They are very impactful and beneficial. And they're actually quite timeless as well. I could say that they've applied to the entirety of my career. So they always work. Tip number 1 is have an agent. Even if you don't have an agent you're working with right now, you're going to want to be ready with an answer. Because if you're attending open houses by yourself, a lot of the agents hosting are going to ask you, oh, do you have an agent? Could you write down their name? Could you give me their name? And if you don't have an answer for that and don't have an agent, some of them, the reason why they're asking is they're hoping maybe you'd like to work with them. And now they're going to be watching a little more closely, a little more chatty, maybe getting in your space and intruding on your experience of viewing the home. So if you can tell them, well, I have an agent, this is their name, they'll say, okay, great. If anything comes up and I need to follow up, I'll contact your agent. So that really simplifies things, gives you a little more space. And if you're attending a private showing, make sure you bring your agent with you and make sure you contact your agent to set up the showing. You're all going together, and that's going to be beneficial to your whole process for you working with your agent. Tip number 2, everything you say can and will be used against you in a negotiation. Okay, so this applies to when you go to that open house, and that's part of why they asked if you had an agent. They ask follow-up questions. All that information they gather helps them in representing their client, the seller. They actually have a duty, an obligation, that whatever they can learn from you, if they ask questions and you happen to answer them, they can use that to their benefit. So this is where we don't want to say too much. You don't want to give everything away and say, oh, I just sold my house and I really need to find a place to buy, or we're expecting a child soon and we've outgrown our home and we're just, oh, we really need a place to go to. You don't want to give it all away, but at the same time, you don't want to say nothing at all, but just be aware. Just be aware everything you say could potentially be used against you. The best rule of thumb is if it applies to the house, the property, whatever you're viewing, those are good things to discuss and talk about, but try to avoid sharing too much about your own personal situation. And the best way to handle that in a way that doesn't sound rude and really cold is, things like, oh, the agent starts talking about schools or restaurants in the area, and your answer can just be, oh, I'm really familiar with the area. You haven't given away if you do or don't live in the area, or what type of housing situation you're in, but yes, I'm very familiar with the area. Yeah, oh, I'm familiar with these buildings. I know some people who have lived around here. Okay, good. And they can just kind of back off with trying to feed all that information to you and trying to find out what your backstory is. This takes us to tip number 3, and it's all about how you interact with the agent for the seller, because you want them on your side. You want them to be an advocate for you. If you go and present an offer and they put it in front of the seller, you want them speaking positively about you. You want them to say, oh, they like the house, they seem reliable, they seem trustworthy. So if you're really cold and reserved, they won't know enough about you. And here's the one really important tip is don't try to talk down the house to justify that it's somehow worth less money. It doesn't give the agent a lot of trust. It sounds like obviously you're playing games because you're saying, well, this part about the house isn't that great and this part about that house isn't that great, but I am going to buy it. And then they're going to wonder, well, what other games might you play between accepting the offer and firming up the contract? And that gives them concern. So you want to look more reliable. You want to look serious and sincere. You don't want to sound desperate, like I will do anything to buy this house. So that's the fine line. So it's okay to tell them, oh, I like this house. It's made a really good impression on me. These are a few things I really like about it. Those are good things. You don't want to say, well, this is the only one I found that I ever like. That's going too far. So you want the agent to be an advocate. You want to keep them on your side. You want them to believe that you are a reliable buyer, and then they will really be on your side during the negotiation. It's in their and the homeowner, the seller's best interest to get a deal done with you because you look like you are going to be easy to work with. That is really, really valuable. Okay, so quick summary. Our 3 tips are have an agent. Everything you say can and will be used against you. And 3, be kind and keep the agent for the seller on your side. I hope that helps while you're out there. If you have any other questions for me, general stuff about how real estate works in the Metro Vancouver area, and I'm in New West, send me a message. I'm always happy to help. Thanks for watching.